This past Saturday, March 29th, 2025, was Vietnam War Veterans Day. So it seems fitting to ask the question, why study history? Now, I'm addressing more of a Christian audience, but anybody can listen to this. So keep in mind that that's going to influence what I present. Imagine waking up one morning with nearly total amnesia. You have the language and you remember how normal things work, how to eat, get dressed, etc. But you don't remember your name, where you've come from, or any of the people in your life. Your spouse is a total stranger. You don't know who your parents are or anything about your hometown. You don't know your basic likes and dislikes. You have no idea of your religion, what books you've read or movies you've watched and enjoyed. Music means nothing to you, as it evokes no feelings or memories. You're a blank slate, dead on the inside. They take you to some expert, and he takes your case and begins to fill in the gaps and feed you background information, teach you about your life, your purpose, where you come from, and where you should go. Except all the information he's feeding you is false, corrupted with his own evil designs in mind, so as to make you into what he wants, a faithful slave who will do his illegal and perverted bidding, not unlike a Jason Bourne situation. Along the way, as you're learning about your supposed past and preparing for your brave new world, you start to experience some flashbacks, some brief glimpses of a different past from that which you're being fed. You have dreams and faint desires for things that clearly go against what the mad scientist is programming into you. You begin to doubt what you're being told. You start doing some investigating on your own, keeping it secret from the mad scientist, the expert. The more you study on your own, the more you figure out that the expert has memory hold a lot of your past, changed it, photoshopped some pictures, changed the records of your past, and you finally figure out that he who controls your past controls your future, and who controls your present controls your past, to quote Orwell, 1984. Finally, after much searching and hard work, you find out that almost everything your expert has told you and built into your life is wrong, warped, wretched, and you escape. You find a whole new world of truth, complete with an abundance of verifiable evidence, and you meet others who confirm what you're finding out about your past, your meaning and significance, and are willing to walk with you into a bright future built on truth, reason, evidence, and even love. Now you are free. Now, this over-dramatized, hyperbolic story might be just a little bit exaggerated, yet it is a picture of the significance of your personal story, your family history, and your nation's history. If a person or a nation loses their memory, their history, they lose truth and significance, purpose, and even their future. They become rootless and can then easily be led astray by the experts into their own evil purposes. Knowing our history is crucial for our well-being as a person and as a nation. The truth is always worth knowing, even if some of it is ugly. Isaiah chapter 46, verses 8 to 11. Remember this and stand firm. Recall it to mind, you transgressors. Remember the former things of old. For I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times, things not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will accomplish all my purposes. Calling a bird of prey from the east, the man of my counsel from a far country, I have spoken, and I will bring it to pass. I have purposed, and I will do it. Now, Isaiah is writing this prophecy to Israel in exile. He lived through the Assyrian invasion of Israel in 722 BC, and his prophecy has to do with the future of Judah, who will be conquered by Babylon in 586 BC, and many of the survivors then will be led away into captivity. But there will come a time when a mighty king Cyrus of the Medes, shall arise and liberate the Jews and allow them to go back home. The Jews in captivity will be tempted to make and worship idols, to compromise with the culture that they're now surrounded by, but they should instead remember God's actions in history, in their past, and worship Him as the one true God. The faith of the Jews and of Christians today is a historical faith. That is, we believe the Bible to be true and that the things mentioned in the Bible really happened in history. Our faith relies on the historical events recorded in the Scriptures. God has, in space and time, intervened in real people's lives and in the lives of nations and accomplished His purposes. This makes history critical to the Jew and to the Christian. There is much here for the modern Christian to ponder regarding God, history, and our faith. First, this passage and its surrounding context inherently assumes that God is the Lord of time and history. The miraculous nature of prophecy teaches us that God, who cannot lie, knows the future with certainty. God is eternal and omniscient. He exists outside of time. He created space and time, knowing everything that will ever happen in time because He has purposed it and ordained it to happen. God does not merely know the future as a passive viewer, nor does He simply know all the possibilities of the future. He knows the future in every detail and with certainty because He has predetermined it. When God reveals the future to one of His prophets, in this case Isaiah, it is certain. I have spoken, and I will bring it to pass. I have purposed, and I will do it. This text in Isaiah 46 also implies that God has a purpose for all of history. History is not just a series of accidents stumbling along to an unknown end without any purpose at all. I have purposed, says the Lord. When we look at the many prophecies fulfilled in the birth, life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, we see thousands of years of history and many countries all moved intricately and purposefully towards the central event and person of history, Jesus Christ. In roughly 2000 BC, God called Abram of Ur in ancient Sumer, the seedbed of Western civilization, to Canaan, so that by about 1400 BC, Abram's descendants, Israel, would be freed of slavery in Egypt in order to conquer Canaan and establish Israel as a nation, preparing the way for Christ. God used various nations, including the Philistines, those are the ancient Phoenicians from whom our alphabet derived, Assyria, Babylon, Persia, to mold and shape Israel and Judah. Then God used Greece, who conquered the known world and spread the Greek language and philosophy, more foundations for Western civilization. And then Rome, who provided a time of peace, roads, and a stable system of law for the spreading of the gospel. All so that, in Galatians 4:4, Paul writes, "But when the fullness of time had come, God sent forth His Son, born of woman, born under the law." So all of history points to Christ. And since Christ, all of history is leading up to the consummation, the return of Christ. Revelation 21, verse 22 and following. And I saw no temple in the city, for its temple is the Lord God the Almighty and the Lamb. And the city has no need of sun or moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and its lamp is the Lamb. By its light will the nations walk, and the kings of the earth will bring their glory into it. And its gates will never be shut by day, and there will be no night there. They will bring into it the glory and honor of the nations. As the Jews could look forward to Cyrus setting them free to go home, pointing them to the hope of their Messiah, Christians look forward to Jesus returning and freeing us from the evil of this sinful flesh and world. History has a purpose, an endpoint that is determined by God and will give God the maximum glory. Sir Herbert Butterfield, he lived 1900 to 1979, was professor of history at Cambridge from 1928 to 1979. He was a committed Christian. His 1949 book, Christianity and History, begins with this: "The God who brought his people out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, was to be celebrated in the Old Testament preeminently as the God of history. It seems to have been when the children of Israel lapsed into idolatry, gave themselves over to the worship of Baal, for example, that they turned rather to the God of nature, glorifying the forces of the physical universe and the fertility of the earth. Nothing could have served better to enhance the preoccupation with history than the fact that Jehovah was bound to his people by a promise." In looking back to history through our faith, or looking forward to the consummation of our faith with the return of Christ, there are some mistakes we can make, ditches into which we can fall on either side. If we fail to see God's design and providence in the past, we can stray in the present. But if we focus only on Jesus' return, we can fail to build a culture for the glory of God in the here and now. We are not left in the present merely to survive and hold on till he comes back and rescues us. We must occupy every square inch of the world and the civilization in which we live for the King of Kings. Our history acts as the building stones and guardrails for us to make continuous progress in this glorious endeavor. Understanding our past, what God has done, helps to protect us from making mistakes and guides us into success. One source of our current malaise in America and in the church is a lack of sound and thorough theology that affects our understanding of the times and of our history. In studying theology proper, that is, the doctrine of God, we see several doctrines that affect our understanding of history, like God's foreknowledge and omniscience, which corresponds to his eternality and infinitude, which means that he ordains all of history for everything and everybody. He knows the past, present, and future simultaneously. For us, history is past, but for God, the past is ever present before him, just as completely as is the future. This means that history can be sanctified because it is always before the Lord, and for us to forsake history or treat it lightly can be sinful in itself or lead to a variety of sins. Many heresies in church history seem to be repeated through the centuries because people forget the past. Without this sound theological foundation for history, evolution by blind chance and chaos are substituted for God's plan and foreknowledge. God's self-revelation takes place in history through mighty acts, miracles, divine inspiration, speaking through his prophets and apostles, and being born into the world through a woman. God participates in the historical stream of the world. He doesn't remain distant from us. All the false gods of the other world religions remain distant, esoteric, mythical. Our God showed up. This involvement in real life, entering history, gives significance to every area of real life. Jesus was an infant. His mother had to feed him and change his diapers and bathe him, thus sanctifying infancy, childhood, and motherhood, and yes, diapers. In this kind of a system, Christianity, everything matters to God. History matters. The Isaiah passage assumes the past has been faithfully recorded and is knowable, but there he was writing primarily about the scriptures, the history of the former prophets had recorded. Today we must approach the past with a more critical and scientific approach. We must recognize that yes, God gave us brains, curiosity, reason, and logic, and we must analyze the history we uncover and try to figure out what exactly happened, when, and why. There's certainly going to be differences of opinion in interpreting the past, and sometimes science fails, of course. Sometimes archaeologists and historians do have an agenda, well-intentioned or maybe evil. We must avoid painting too rosy of a picture of our past, but also avoid the bitter cynicism that is common today. Our faith can temper these tendencies or feed them. Weighing the evidence is crucial. We study history not only because it is a part of God's general revelation to us, but because we can profit from that revelation. We can gain insights into how others live, think, feel, what their accomplishments have been. And this helps us understand and relate to our current age with more wisdom, compassion, and justice. This helps us avoid the problems of provincialism, the trap that says our way of doing things is the best or only way. In studying God's natural revelation, we gain the ability to evaluate, analyze, and make sound judgments in our own time and world. In conclusion, the study of history is important for seeing how God has worked in the past, how He is possibly working in the present, and what the big picture or end goal is. It provides even unbelievers with deep roots and guardrails that can guide our civilization today and help to ward off cultural disasters. Knowing where you've come from is critical for knowing who you are and where you're heading. It gives us a purpose greater than ourselves. This is Stab the Dragon for American Catechism, out here.